welcome back for another episode of the Dragon Heads podcast. I am your master of ceremonies, Thorn Rain, and with me, as always, my co-hosts, we have Dragon Joe and Dungeon Kyle. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing
Hanging
well,
in there,
man.
man.
Times, good times. We're going to start this off by rolling right into the one piece of news that we've got going on tonight. Joe, you brought this to the table. I'm being new to Critical Role, not 100% familiar with this, so why don't you take this away for us?
Basically, the news came out today that Brian W. Foster is leaving Critical Role. Um, for someone that's just getting acquainted with Critical Role, he is the guy that runs their talk show called Talks Machina, and it's basically a deep dive into all the stuff that's going on. What were behind the players' decisions? Why didn't you use this item? Why did you? They want to ask all the questions, and a lot of times they pull stuff from the community, from their Twitch channel, their Facebook feed, their Reddit. They pull questions from everywhere, and he has been the host of that since its inception. So it's kind of the changing of guards for that part of their company. Um,
He will
Now,
be missed.
immediately coming, oh, absolutely, he will be missed, and he's best of
He's a
luck to
great
him on
host.
to everything. Yeah, he's a great host. He's a guy that is very personable. Isn't willing to tell a bad joke or be a bad joke, and is just absolutely someone that you love to watch. And I think
He,
that's the reason why he's moving on to his own thing outside of Critical Role.
not many people
But that
know
being
though,
said,
but he has a really good redemption story too. He's come a long way.
the,
So
I don't know as much about that. I just know him from what he's been doing on Critical Role.
no, he's come a long way.
Um,
So if like this is his next step, like that's good. And just, next step in the right direction.
Absolutely. The other question I have for you guys is, who do you think might take over as the host of Talks Machina? Do you have any ideas, Kyle?
Uh Danielle?
Yeah, Danny Carr is
Yes.
definitely
Danny.
definitely a he's definitely somebody that could do that. But
Well,
I
she
have a
already
feeling
does
that
the animated recap.
she does that, and she is a part of Talks Machina most of the time. Usually, she's the, like, I like to say, the fact checker, because
Yeah,
she's the person
basically.
that has all of the Critical Role stats. She'll put a snide comment in here or there,
She's
or
critical wiki.
yeah, she's like officially the lore master, and like she's the one that'll be like, oh, I'm shipping those two, blah 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 blah. You know, very into the more role play part of everything. The other person I think would actually be great, and I know she has been getting more involved with Critical Role, Mika Burton. She's she's bubbly. She's very uh like, I think she would get a lot out of the cast, especially in a that sort of situation. And I think that she's already involved there, so I think that would be a good step. And it would leave Danny in her current role where she's kind of uh keeping where she has stats and the other stuff, and I think that would be a natural fit.
Yeah,
And those are
no,
the
I
only two
I
I
can
could
see
honestly
that.
think of.
You want to
And
know who I want to be the next host? Would be Taliesin Jaffe. I think he would be a really funny host for that.
That'd be a hard part. The hard part is how does he do that and be a player? I think
Exactly.
that he's.
You almost have to
I think
have
you want,
somebody outside the group be the interviewee or interviewer.
absolutely,
and
and
uh, Mike or Mika Burton, I actually know her from doing hosting work inside of the Overwatch League. So I know that she is very well versed in hosting and kind of doing the interview portions. So I didn't even know that she was on the table because, like I said, I'm still very new to Critical Role, but I would love to watch her do kind of a talk show, like the way you guys were explaining it to me, with stuff around the Critical Role universe. That would be pretty awesome to watch.
There is one more coincidence. Is Alexandria Unlimited's coming to a wraps right around the same time this has happened, so we might see a Bria over there.
That's a possibility too. The other thing I'll say about Mika is that Mika Burton did have a role in Campaign 2 where she was there for, I want to say, 3 episodes. I can't remember exactly, but
Yes.
they met her and they had a whole adventure going off and finding a white dragon, and it was very, very epic level of going off and having fun. And she
Wasn't
played
she
the
Rini?
character. Yes, she was
Wasn't that?
Rainy,
Yes.
and yeah, she was. It was very. She said she actually played against her normal like types because first off, she played a druid. She doesn't normally play druid. She said she sticks more with like warlocks. What was it? Warlock. I can't remember all.
I can't remember,
Again,
but
we
I
found all this.
watched the same interview that you're referencing.
I believe it was a talks interview.
I think so.
Oddly enough,
I think it was.
but she wanted, and the other thing that she really wanted is she wanted this to be a lawful good character, which is again playing against her type, because she would go a lot more like chaotic neutral or chaotic good, and it was very interesting to see like a couple of the characters give her like mental conundrums in terms of testing what her morals
Yep.
are versus
Yep.
what is good for the greater good. And she definitely says, "I need to sleep and ask my angel."
Yep.
It was very cute, very on point.
Rini's
Um,
like conception of a character was really interesting to actually listen to. Like, I haven't heard of anybody coming at it that way in a long time. It's refreshing.
but again, that's the sort of thing that you find out from Talks Machina is you'll hear like the backstories, you'll hear how they prepped for the session, um how they took thoughts of different things and that, and that's what's really interesting about the show.
Another one I'm gonna have to add to the list. But with that being
All
our
right.
only bit of news this week, we're skipping over the top 5. We're heading right into the main discussion, and we're gonna be looking at chase rules this week. So, Joe, you've got a list here for us. We're gonna be going through all kinds of crazy chase scenarios and rules here. So, why don't you start us off? I believe you got us starting off with mount chases.
Well, let me back up a second. The first reason why I thought of this, I went and looked up the rules, is I was listening to Exandria Unlimited, and there was a scene in that show where one of the players is being kidnapped, and a chase ensues to get her back. And Abria had this whole thing that she called chase rules. And basically she said during the chase you can have movement, an action, no bonus actions, no reaction. And whenever she said that, I kind of went, man, I get why you're simplifying. I get you're simplifying things, but the my first thought is there was a monk in the party, and I'm going, man, you're neutering the monk because they're going to use their key points to try to catch
I
up
was
to them.
wondering why she'd never used the
Well,
monk swiftness, where you can dash
well,
or double your movement. Step in a wind.
yeah, you dash it. Yeah, step of the wind is a dash as a bonus action,
Yeah, but
and
like she never
the
used it in that encounter that you're referencing. And I wondered that.
Right,
I
and the
didn't
reason
catch it wasn't
the
bonus action.
right, and the reason is because they weren't allowed to use bonus actions. And the funny thing is, and I know she's a little loosey goosey with Bria's a little loosey goosey with the rules,
She's really
but
loosey goosey because later that on, Opal used Misty Step to get off the kidnapper's
which
thing
is
onto, which is a bonus action.
a bonus action, right?
So
And again, it was one of those things that I felt I started looking at. Well, I'm not going to criticize somebody until I've looked at the rules and see what other options are out there, and to try to figure out why she did what she did. So as I start doing it, the first place I go is the DMG, and basically the first part is the DMG basically kind of defines what's going on in a chase and what can kind of happen in a chase. And I know on ours we had a couple of I started off with thinking of what sort of chases do you get into, and I wrote down mount chases, ship chases, something gets taken away, a person gets kidnapped, all these sort of things happen that create a chase. An item gets stolen, and those were my first thoughts. And then I'm like, as I'm starting to look at the chase rules, I started going, well, these chase rules don't really have something for like if you're on mounts. So is it the mount that's moving, or is it you that's moving? Like, so I started off with the basic chase rules, and go ahead and pull those up, and we'll kind of roll through them. And it seems like they tried to make this as simple as possible, but there's some things I like, some things I don't like.
Okay.
And the first one is they talk about dashing. It says during a chase, they can use the dash action up to 3 times plus their Constitution modifier. So if you have a Con modifier of 5, you could dash 8 times. If you have a Con modifier of 2, you're able to dash 5 times. Anytime you dash after that set number, you have to succeed on a DC 10 Constitution check, or you gain 1 level of exhaustion. If you at any point you gain 5 levels of exhaustion, you drop out of the chase because your speed technically becomes 0. And the interesting thing that I found here is that a creature removes all levels of exhaustion they gain during a chase with a short or long rest. So these are like exhaustion points with an asterisk. So some little weird rule there. The next thing they talk about is spells and attacks. Is that during it, normal cover rules, terrain, and spells and attacks apply. Participants can't normally make opportunity attacks against each other, because the idea is if everybody's running, you can't make an opportunity attack against everybody that's running in the same direction. Okay, I get that. Makes sense. But if the adventurers run past like a gang of thieves that is maybe an ally of the thief, or they want to help out the thief, or maybe they just want to jump the adventurers on their own volition, and those thugs can make an opportunity attack about everybody running by because they're stationary and they're not a part of the chase, at least at that point. And then ultimately, they give ways that you can end a chase. And if neither side gives up, someone either makes a stealth check first person, and if everybody has to make those checks, and if they make high enough stealth check and you guys have low enough perception, they get away. Vice versa, if you make a high enough perception, the chase is still on. the other way it can end is if the chase is the quarry is caught, and that way they're able to stop them, get back whatever was stolen, or stop them from running away. And one of the things that they talk about is that they have escape factors. So if whoever the quarry has anything to hide behind, or is able to do like an Assassin's Creed into a crowd and just walk away, they get advantage on that check, on that stealth check. If they
Jump
have
into
nothing to
that
hide behind,
hay bale.
yeah, if they have nothing to hide behind because they're all out in the open, or it's the middle of the night, so okay, you can hear exactly where they're going everywhere. And one of the big ones that really got me, if the lead pursuer is a ranger or has proficiency in stealth, all of these create disadvantage for the quarry. And I love the fact that it just says, if you're a ranger, you don't even have to be a ranger that's good at survival or has proficiency in survival. You just have to be a ranger. That again, something interesting to me. And the other thing that they had in here was tables for chase complications. It's basically roll a d20 and something happens that you either have to make like a strength or acrobatic check, or um, something along that line of this complication is stopping you from going after your quarry. And the other thing that they go on, that you can design your own tables, splitting up if like you have one group try to cut them off at the pass, and this and that. And for the most part, I get those. They like the general idea that they're trying to pitch here. I get it, but they're not trying to limit the players in any way. It's, hey, we're rolling initiative, and then we're playing this chase game. Like I kind of see it as almost a mini game, but you're still able to use your spells. You're able to use your bonus actions. You're able to use your reactions, and you're able to attack them and do different things to try to slow them down. Now, that being said, I also looked up some alternate rules, and I looked up some alternate rules and alternate ways that other people and other DMs have kind of made chase scenes or runaway scenes, however you want to put it. And the first one, I call it the race style or the ruler style. And I don't have a visual example of it, but if you imagine like a ruler, and that ruler is 200 feet, and the players are at point A, they have to get to point B. The perfect example that I have of this was actually from the series High Rollers. They were in this space station, for lack of a better word, because it's a little more complicated than that, but it's a space station. And they had just taken out the power supply to the space station, and all the systems were shutting down. So they're racing back to the portal that got them there. And they have these they have this one bad guy that's chasing them, trying to stop them from getting into the portal. And the DM basically says you have 5 rounds to get 200 feet and through the portal. And it was one of those things that all of a sudden they know that they start doing the math, going, well, if we just go, everybody were to go 60 feet in 5 rounds, not being attacked or anything or slowed down, okay, that's not we would get there. But there were other complications. There were these drones that were trying to stop them. There was this bad guy trying to stop them. And a couple of them had things like expeditious retreat, which let them go farther. One of them had made a athletics check and jumped up the stairs to gain movement on the ruler. And it was one of those things that they talked about how they basically had a line, and they had where each person was along that line at what distance and how close they were to their goal and where everyone was. And I thought that was a very creative way to kind of set up a chase type scene. Okay, the quarry is here. If the quarry gets to this point, they escape. Okay? And it was one of those things that I liked that idea because it was very it seemed very simplistic, but at the same time it was able to keep track of things, keep measurement of things. You're able to use your bonus actions. You're able to use your spells to get more movement and things like that. It just seemed to work really well. The second one, and I've heard this one a lot. It's just that I don't know how I feel about it because it's a little bit of a cop out to me, and it's turned into a skills challenge. And for people that haven't done skills challenge since it was fourth edition that they came out with skills challenge, right, Kyle?
I honestly don't know.
I think it was fourth edition that they came out with skill challenges, and the whole idea is that you have a set DC, a static DC, and to keep tracking the quarry, and you hit either 3 successes or 3 failures, and that determines on if the guy got away or if you guys catch up with him. The thing I like about this is it's very simple. It's what skill do you use to try to catch up to the sword? Well, I'm going to use acrobatics, jumping over barrels and bouncing off walls to catch up to him. Okay, that's a success. You say the static DC is 15. He rolls a 16. That's a success. The barbarian says, "Well, I'm going to sprint and use athletics." Okay, he rolls a 10. That's a failure. You have different things in the group to either get to 3 successes or 3 failures. I like that idea, but it feels like, again, it's not allowing your characters. You're relying on skills when it can be more of a combat type scenario, in my opinion. But it's easier, especially if you're more heavy role play. I don't think for the games that I'm in, it would be that great because we're more of the guys that we want to see miniatures, we want to see distances, and we're like, oh yeah, we want to figure out how to do everything, even if it slows things down a little bit. The third thing is the best I can explain it. It's like a choose your own adventure. You run down and you see like a path A, a path B, and basically if this guy dumps the quarry dumps a bunch of barrels in the road, do you try to go over the barrels or you try to go around the barrels? And based on what you do, you're given a skill and try to keep up with everything. It's one of those, again, it's more of along the skill challenges, but the catch with it is that this one gives you kind of option A or option B to pick which skill you're using. And it's again the same thing of you're losing a lot of your abilities, you're losing a lot of your spells that you'd be able to cast, but at the same time it makes things shorter, makes it quicker. The last thing that I had was it was called a skill check with complications, and that's where you use the complications table, and then you add skill checks onto there, like you're running the static DC, and then you add the complications table onto it, making it a little more complicated. But ultimately, again, I feel you're losing out because you're not be able to use your class abilities. Well, now to you guys, after I've kind of explained through all this a little bit, what do you think you would want to run in your games.
Well, I actually found a modified version of the 5e chase rules that I think we have linked down in the description. Am I right, Soren?
I do not have that one up.
Alright, well, we'll get it on there. But this one changes it into like a couple 1, 2, 3, 4, like like your first step is setup. You got your first people that set the front of the race, right? And then they're gonna call this thing called point blank, which is the people that are immediately behind them. They can do melee attacks while they're in range. Then they got a next range of short range, which is your 30 foot, your medium range, which is your 60 foot, and your long range is like 60 foot behind medium range. So, and then
So
after,
120.
yeah, so, and then after that, if you're behind that, you are like out of the chase. And then throughout the chase, there's different complications based on what you're running through, and everybody has their own initiative, and straight up like it's kind of like a mixture of what Abria used. So I don't know. I really like it. I want the people to check
I'll,
it
I'll
out. Let me know how it is.
I'll tell you what that kind of reminds me of. I don't know if you've ever played Call of Cthulhu,
Yeah.
but they have their own chase rules, and I I don't fully remember them, but what I remember is everybody started off with a number, and it, basically like each number had like a corresponding slot. So say if you had a 9, you were at the lead. 8, 7, 6, so forth, so on. And the catch with it was every time you basically failed, they're equivalent to a Constitution saving throw. That number went down. But if they got I think it was extreme success, which their whole system is based off of the percentile dice. So it's like if you get in that top, I think it's like 10% or 15% or something like that. You would gain that speed number, and once you were out in front by yourself, you were able to get away. So it sounds similar to what you're talking about, but with obviously a different rule set. But I like that kind of idea, but the thing is that it feels like there's other problems that you're going to run into with that. It just
Well, it goes
it's
into
going to run in.
it kind of really does explain a lot. I was just kind of really trying to sum it up, but it really does like go into, and it goes and clearly gives you DCs and rules for and examples. So it's pretty decent. I wish you guys can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, like looking at all of this, I like that race style. Um, I can't remember. Did you say that there was complications within the race style?
You could put complications within the race style.
Because
The
I kind of think like a race style with complications that I'm kind of mixing a bunch of stuff up here, but um I like the race style, but it seems like it's too straightforward. And I like the complications to add a little bit of flavor to the encounter, for lack of a better word. Um but the choose your path to where, like, okay, maybe you're able to choose a path that takes you up a high road, which actually cuts off at a bend, which would be shortening your distance. It would make you getting to a different point quicker. Um, so the race style as a base with a little bit of these other things added in, the complications and the choose your path, like put a couple, alleyways that you can knock off a couple feet from on that race, and to where you actually would get to jump a substantial amount if you choose the right alleyway. If you choose the wrong alleyway, you might actually fall behind a couple,
or be out of the chase entirely.
yeah, be out of the chase entirely.
And I think that that's the only problem that I have with those sort of chases are if something like that happens, I think the DM just needs to have a set way that he or she does it and stick with it. That way it becomes familiar. And chases are one of those weird things where it happens every once in a while. So you're always going back to the rules going, man, how do we do these chase rules again? It's not like combat where there's a combat almost every section. There's
Mm-hmm.
a chase maybe twice a campaign, 3 times a campaign, if that. Unless they're like your campaign is very specific in terms of uh like uh like your bounty hunters or something, and everyone's running from you. It's just one of those things that there's ultimately, I think the right thing is your right mixture of a little bit of everything here, because I know some things are going to be it's going to be better for some things, it's going to be better for all this, and I think that's one of the reasons like some people go with the simpler versions of cases, because it's like, okay, I don't want to have to go look up all these rules. Let's just make it simple until we figure out, did they get away or did you guys catch him? And just try to simplify it as much as possible. I think that's why they people default to skill challenges and other things, because it's not like they're once you figure out the big thing of a chase is once you figure out, did they escape or did they catch him, you know? And once that is resolved, then you can go up, well, they're going to interrogate him, or, oh, we need to find new ways to track this guy down. And that's the catch 22 with chases, is where you want to make them fun and exciting, but if it gets bogged down by rules, is it really fun and exciting?
I think honestly, it's more just you don't see them a lot because people are not clear about the rules, and therefore they're unsure on what to do, and I'll just kind of do it myself kind of thing that turns into, oh crap, this is a lot more than what I was trying to do on the fly. And then they start looking up rules
Absolutely.
anyways, so I don't know. I agree with you what you said though. The DM needs to pick one way and continue to do that throughout the game.
Yep. Uh, Now, the only other thing I wanted to mention was that the other kind of rules that I ran across with, I know Mercer in Critical Role had a whole like big thing with ship combat, and I also saw in High Rollers they had a whole thing with ship combat. And the catch with ship combat is that rather than having uh, a lot of like having the party be like, oh hey, we're doing this or that. It's, well, who's the gunner? Who's the pilot? The pilot, the uh, helmsman, whatever. Who's the lookout? Who's the people fighting off the boarding party? Those sort of things that makes those sort of combats very unique, and people will have different rules for those sort of things instead of just a straight, well, is our boat faster than their boat? And the one that I always kind of laughed about is that there was one situation where a boat was coming out of a cove, and this other boat popped out from behind a waterfall to chasing it, and they're flying pirate colors, and lo and behold, a lucky spell capsized the pirate boat, and they're like, well, that was over really quick, but at the same time, it did not like that person's spell was meant for that. Like it was like there was a 25% chance of him capsizing the boat, and he got lucky.
I mean, you can't blame
So
the dude.
no,
Yeah, you got
absolutely,
rid of the encounter
it
quick, but like it was effective. You got away.
it it absolutely was effective. But I think the funny thing was is the look on Matt Mercer, because he'd been holding on to this rule set for ship combat for weeks, and it finally came up, and he gave everybody out everything, and Aaron's spell ends the combat prematurely, and he just kind of like, oh.
So, do we have anything else on chases?
I think that's about it. Like I said, as long as a DM like sets rules and sticks to them without like adding a bunch or taking away a bunch, I feel like that's the best way to run chases.
I would definitely agree.
So what do we got next, Thorn?
So, the last thing on the evening is going to be this week's encounters. Me and Kyle kind of came up with these on the fly today. Uh, the adventurers have come to the final room of the dungeon and hear strange noises behind the door. We've got 4 level 10 characters. We're looking at a boss fight here. This is to clean out the dungeon, finish it up. So, Kyle, why don't you start us off with yours?
Alright, so naturally they're gonna go through the door and get greeted by one Minotaur. Now, Minotaurs are actually decently intelligent in terms of like you might be able to like communicate basically. So depending on how that goes, most likely they're gonna attack it and get ambushed by 2 more. After they get down to 1 left, then the big baddie's gonna reveal itself, come flying down, and it's a Gyno Sphinx. And are you familiar with sphinxes? Either one of you guys?
I know that they tend to be um they tend to like riddles. I know that they tend to guard things, but I've I've only seen one that I can think of off the top of my head, and it was more helpful than it was an obstacle or a boss.
Yeah, so they're exceptionally smart with an 18 intelligence. And yes, they love riddles. By the way, it's as light as a feather, yet no man can hold it for long. What is it?
Water. Air.
Ooh,
No,
good
air.
one. Ooh, Joe?
I am blanking on that one. I feel like it's if you're asking like, hey, what's uh, like I feel like that's like it's like time or something, which is like the answer to all the riddles.
Honestly, I'm going to give it to Thorn. It's breath.
Okay.
So, anyways, they're extremely smart and decently innate spellcasters. And so after, getting 3 Minotaurs, eh, they're level 3s, CRs. They're decent. Like they're gonna throw a little bit of. The party had to throw a little bit of effort into them, so they're not going into this Gyno Sphinx full blown. And I think honestly it would be a pretty decent fight.
There's
Yeah,
just
it
something about,
sounds like a pretty complicated fight, especially if there's um, complications with the Dino Sphinx and it being able to cast at well, it's stealth or hidden.
Completely reminds me, it's layer effects.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's the big baddie at the end of the dungeon.
and you got to
So,
make the big bad a little more complicated than, you know, the underlings leading up to it. So
oh yeah, and at least the way I play it, I will play it as an intelligent creature and have a full conversation with you. Like I actually, when I do plan encounters, I do, and I go like when I play these kind of creatures, I do give it a little bit of a backstory if people do like want to inquire about it. This way, I'm not coming up with it on the fly. So like it just is. It really all just depends on how the group handles it, but usually it ends in combat. And honestly, this one would be pretty fun combat from both the players and the DM side.
seeing
it definitely looks like it will be complicated because it does have some immunities. It does have some resistances. Um, it has pretty decent armor class. It's able to fly,
that's
and
my big thing is the aerial combat aspect of it.
Yeah, but you got a group of level 10s, so any wizard in there will definitely be able to cast fly. Not to mention any like boots of flying or winged boots or you know at level 10 aerial combat it's an inconvenience, but it's not like oh crap that's a big problem.
agreed. Aerial combat's really more of a like once you hit level 8 or so, it's like druids can wild shape into flying animals. Um, everyone should at least have some sort of way to get up, at least for a short amount of time, like with the fly spell, with winged boots, with um I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. It has some sort of ranged, maybe with like a lightning javelin, or dwarven thrower. Those are the sort of things that you would have to create an advantage, even if they're in the air.
Agreed. So like I said, inconvenience, not the end of the world.
See, and
Not to mention if they have any spells that can bring them down.
Well, that's what's funny. You got to be able to see it to be able to bring it down. And this has
This is true.
invisibility and creative invisibility. Like I said, this would be a fun battle. I honestly think this would be a genuinely fun battle.
yours is more of a tactical battle. Mine is just a straight up you're gonna brawl because you're fighting two big dumb venom trolls. Um, we're making this a little bit more difficult because that final room, when they open up that door, the stench of decay and just pools of poison uh litter the floor, and in the back of the room are two massive venom trolls. um these guys are pretty interesting from what I was reading on them. Anytime they are attacked with anything that isn't psychic damage, um, they spray Poison Splash, 5 feet. Each character within 5 feet takes 2d8 damage. So your melee characters are going to have to be very careful with engaging these two trolls. They've got a multi attack. They get 3 attacks, 1 bite, 2 with the claws. Their bite, while it has a +7, it does 1d6 plus 4 piercing damage, and then 1d8 poison damage. There's a lot of poison going on here. Claws basically doing the same thing, except for 2d6 plus 4. But then they have their Venom Spray, where they actually will just cut themselves and douse a 15-foot cube of the room in poison for 2d6. I'm sorry, 4d8 poison damage. The troll will have to take 2d6 damage. And then you factor in the pools of poison on the floor. This is a very hectic and messy fight. If I would play it out, your characters aren't going to be able to stand still because there's going to be poison flying all over the place. While they're moving, they're going to have to be dodging pools of poison. It'll be a very engaged fight, taking on 2 of these Venom Trolls at the same time.
The one thing you didn't mention was regeneration.
Oh yes, and the regen.
The big thing with regeneration is that these Venom Trolls only have 94 hit points, but with that regen, it's one of those things. All of a sudden, they automatically heal for
10 points.
10. So they'll regen 10 points every round, even if they're knocked out, unless they have fire or acid being thrown on them. Fire is more of the common, with your firebolts, your fireballs, those sort of things. So fire is more common, but again, if you're able to have acid and I think there's a reaction. I'm blanking on what it's called off the top of my head, but that lets you change the damage type. And
in older editions, I don't know about newer editions.
I think it just got released in Tasha's.
Okay, see, I'm not familiar with Tasha's. I gotta grab it.
I was looking through it and I remember seeing it. I'm blanking out on what it's called right now, but it allows you to change the elemental type of whatever it is, whatever spell you're throwing. So, say a warlock throws an Eldritch Blast. Well, you need it to be fire damage though, so you can change the element from force to fire, and in doing that, the troll will receive fire damage. And it's something that is very minute, but at the same time, it can save your butt in an encounter like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if the team going in doesn't know that the regeneration is there, that 90 health could easily double. Even go up by 50%. You're looking at possibly going 150, 180. That's one of the things that I didn't know about trolls until I started reading about these guys. I went through a bunch of trolls. I was like, I want to put a troll at the end of this cave. Like that's my goal, is I want a big bad troll. And then I found the Venom Trolls, and I'm like, they would just be sitting in a room full of poison, making it that much more difficult. A lot of really cool trolls out there. Like I would like to mess around with some trolls, I think.
Trolls are really good. Like, they really offer a dynamic and unique workaround.
Yeah, for sure. The trolls they fit in the environment well, especially if you're putting them in a swamp or some deep dark cave, because that's where you're going to find trolls.
Yep.
And they tend to find that they're very, very hard to fight. especially if you don't have that caster that has, like a fire cantrip. You don't have someone with create bonfire. You don't have someone that has firebolt. You don't have someone that has
Acid
um
spray.
acid spray. And all of a sudden it's like you have a storm sorcerer in there as one of your main casters, and you're going, you know any fire spells? Nah, I'm all lightning and thunder, man. It
Yeah,
it becomes
it becomes a problem.
You better light a
yeah,
torch.
light a torch or a lantern, or
And
figure out some way to burn it.
Yep.
and looking at the stats here, it has a 7 intelligence and a 9 wisdom. So I would say that if it does get knocked out and they don't have a way to keep it from regen, that it would be smart enough to continue to lay there for multiple rounds to regen. And then even that, only at 94 hit points, that's 9, technically 10 rounds to get full health, but call it 9 rounds, and it's back to full health,
Oh
ready
yeah.
to go, attacking the adventurers that now turned around and left. So they don't die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, did you have anything else, Thorn?
No, I think that is it. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. This was a pretty short one compared to our last couple. Next week's, I have a feeling, just based on our top 5, might be a little bit longer. So we will wrap this up tonight. Um, so
Hey Joe,
Yeah.
I live where there is light, but I die if it shines on me. What am I?
A shadow?
Yes.
that's what I was gonna say.
Good job.
All right.
Good job.
So we
Like I feel like a lot of the riddles are just abstract things like that. We'll have to
and
do a show of riddle.
it's always the simplest thing, but in your mind, you
You
think that
overcomplicate it.
it's got to be complicated, and it's always the
Exactly.
easiest thing. But that's gonna wrap us up tonight. So, got a little bit of new stuff going on. We are Twitch affiliates. So, if you want to support the show absolutely free and you have Amazon Prime, you can head over to our Twitch and hit the subscribe button, and that will give that'll give us your Twitch Prime. Absolutely free, helps out the show, and we might be able to get Mr. Kyle a camera if we're able to get this going here.
Yeah, I gotta work on that.
That's first on the docket for show equipment. But you can find the show over on Twitter at DragonHeads2. You can email the show dragonheads216@gmail.com. Questions, comments, concerns. We'll take all of them. Give us some show suggestions. If you want to see us talk about something, drop it in the email. Drop it over on Twitter. Leave it in the comments on Twitch. We will see it. You can follow the show right here on Twitch.
Discord.
Yes, join the Discord. You can follow the show over on Twitch, twitch.tv/DragonHeadsPod. Hit that subscribe or follow button. We'll give you a shout out on the show. You can join the Discord over at discord.me/DragonHeadsPod. I think that's everything. We record live Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Typically, unless things go wrong.
Do we want to just say that we start recording at 9:30 because we
Yeah.
always seem to be like late?
Yeah, we're always wrapping up the final little bits of things or like stuff coming in. So,
Yeah.
maybe what I'll do is I'll hit the go live button at 9. We'll do the pre-show for 30 minutes, and then we'll get into the show. That way, we start at 9, no matter what.
Wait, you want to show them our shenanigans?
Yeah. But our intro music, Self-Induced Psychosis by my buddy, Mr. Kyle Wynn, who is actually getting ready to drive from California all the way to Boston because he took a job working at Harmonix, doing the social media for Rock Band. Good buddy of mine. He's moving from the middle of California in heat always to Boston. he is going to freeze, and it's going to be hilarious. I love you, Kyle. Anyways, get out there and slay some dragons, adventurers.
Good luck, adventurers.
Take it easy, guys. See you next week.
What's going on?
It
My...
ended on Twitch.
Hey, Joe.
Did it end on Twitch?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Always
Kyle?
smiles or maybe frowns. Sinks in water, never drowns. Catch